Welcome to Pat O'Keefe's World of Curiosities and our new favorite feature, Zeea and Pat's Witchy Wisdom. Zeea, it's good to have you with us.
Yes,
Well,
it's
you're
good
part
to
of the
be here.
show.
Yeah. New episode of our show. Yeah, I'm excited.
Well, tell everybody what we're going to be doing tonight.
Okay, we're going to talk about how there's a prevalence of AI generated content, especially affecting the witchy community, or really everyone is getting overwhelming. So we're going to talk about how there's how to spot fake books on Amazon and show our own book recommendations.
All right. So I'm excited. And also, she has a special feature at the end that she's going to be carrying the weight on, and that is music, witchy music. So if you have a playlist, you might want to add some of these to it. So okay, let's get started. Let's talk about AI and these manufactured books. How can people tell if something's fake or not? And I
I
shouldn't
think,
say fake because it
yeah.
is created, but created through AI.
Yeah, the problem with that is all AI does is scrape all the information that's already out there. So therefore it's taken away from people's own research and experiences. But one of the ways I think would be like look at the bio of the person, see if they have a real picture or it sounds like it's written by a real person, the bio about them, and make sure it's not an AI generated picture. That'd be one way I would think.
Yeah, that's excellent, and that's one of the things you need to look for, and also descriptions. The description of the book. Read it and see, does it seem like it's machine generated? Or does it there's appear to be a human touch? And here's another thing. You can usually read a few pages of the book for free. So take that opportunity and see if it again sounds mechanical. This is your hard-earned money. These are books that you want to learn from or gain information from or be entertained by. So if it's outside of, witchy reading, you're still wanting to get the most out of your time and the material. So this is important. And
Yeah.
what else?
And if it's not written by a real person, you're not getting their voice and their perspective. And I think really that's the main important thing when you're reading about magical subjects in
Mhm,
particular, their experiences. So
mhm.
um
And when we were talking about this
yeah,
earlier, you mentioned reviews, Zia.
yeah,
So
look
what should people look for?
yeah, look at people's reviews and if there's not a review yet, try to see if that's like the first book this person put out. And if it is, then maybe wait till somebody else gets it if you're unsure, and then see if they leave a review, what they thought about it first.
And that's interesting, you're right, people need to read those reviews to see what people are saying, and if there's nothing there and you're looking around, the author hasn't gotten another book with any reviews, and it's really hard to tell. But here's another tip. If you look under the author's name and you notice that there are 30 books written in the same year, I can promise you as an author that would be quite a feat. Now, it could be done if you did the Barbara Cartland method, and I always say that Barbara was the first, and she wrote the old what we call the bodice rippers, the romance novels. And what she did is that she would have the same plot, and literally the only thing that she would change would be the names, the location, the physical description, the person or people within the book, the major main characters, and voila, you had another Barbara Cartland bestseller, and she was a bestseller. I think she wrote 700, I think, and 32 books is what we saw. 732 books. Imagine that in
Yeah.
in her lifetime.
Yeah, and the thing is, yeah, it cannot create, it can only just pretty much take other people's words and ideas. And
Mhm.
but then, a lot of the time it does sound really recycled, so you'll be able to tell whenever you read it. But
And this is important too. And people, have to understand that we don't want you getting ripped off for your money, but it's also hurting legitimate authors, someone like Jake Richards or Byron Ballard or myself, because you're reading these books and people who have put a whole lot of time and work into their product, if you will, may get ignored or, it may be something that you wouldn't buy because you bought this other book. So, Zia, what are some books that you recommend if someone's interested?
Well, yeah, you mentioned Jake Richards, and he had reached out to me asking to kind of shine a light on this because, one thing with him is he had his blog before he had his books, and he still works on the blog too. But, that's one thing that AI can, just take right from the internet and use his stuff like that. So, yeah, it really affects people. Um, and I do have his book here. This is the second one, Doctor and the Devil, Notebooks of an Appalachian Conjure Man. I definitely recommend his books. And I had right here saved where it's talking about lucky days and how you would find out what the lucky and unlucky days of the month were. So there's going to be a lot of information in his books you're going to be going back to and making little tabs and notes. And it's really like quite a thick book. It's the same, about the same as the first one. This first one is called, what is it called? Backwoods Witchcraft.
Backwoods, yes, Backwoods
Yeah,
Witchcraft.
and
And
that's one of the
actually,
first
Jake,
one I
if you're
like. So,
listening, I've got that book.
yeah, yeah, he's got some good books. And I sell them at the shop too, and they're one of the best sellers. And he also does a fortune telling card deck. So that's one of them. And then, sorry, I have my books over here. And on the same vein of like his teachings, we also have Mountain Conjure and Southern Root Work by Ryan Foxwood. And I haven't read as much of his yet. Like I have several books that I haven't got around to reading yet, but I know this is a good one too. I'll just be honest with you, I ain't read every one in front to back yet, but like I said, it's information knowledge you're going to be going back to all the time.
Mhm.
And let's see, hold on a minute. Now, this is one that's inspired me a lot lately. American Folk Magic, Charms, Spells, and Herbals. Silver Ravenwolf. But it's one of the,
Mhm.
I think it's out of print, so it's hard to find. But that's the one I've been reading lately. I'm almost done with it.
And just to give Silver Ravenwolf a call out, she has been involved in the pagan community for many, many years
Mm.
and is incredibly respected. So I'm sure that's an amazing book.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying that one. I was like, man, I'm glad I found that. They need to reprint that again if it's, I don't think it's out there. And then Crossroads of Conjure, the roots and practices of granny magic, hoodoo, brujeria, I think it's how you say it, and Kurundi's.
True thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now this tells you the similarities of all these practices together and how they come together and like overlap. And I think that's really interesting. And then, little ways that they're different as well. So that was a cool one. And then we have Appalachian Granny Witch Magic.
Wonder who wrote that one.
Oh, I hear she's a real nice lady. Pat O'Keefe, Pat Bussard O'Keefe. And, you know, like I said, each person's voice is really unique and that cannot be, AI could never do anything like that. It cannot create, it can only just pretty much take our ideas and make them, worse. It doesn't really add
Mhm.
anything to it. But yeah, I
Mhm.
really enjoyed Pat's book. It's very whimsical and magical.
Thank you. And
Definitely.
also, if anybody's ever watched The Terminator, the day came, if y'all will remember, when AI became self-aware.
Oh, that
So,
was
becoming self-aware meant that it realized that it had a life, a sentient that it deserved to be here just like we did, a self-awareness of itself. And right now, AI isn't at that point, but who is it? I believe it's Elon Musk that thinks that it is a very real threat in the future of humanity. So we shall see.
like the thing with me is I try not to put any kind of negative focus on these ideals. So, I don't want to make it come to fruition. So that's why it's like kind of glad I'm in Appalachia. It feels at least that I'm kind of more away from the technological stuff, even though. It's not
Well,
quite the truth.
you know what I love about books, and I do have a passion for books. And what I love about books is they foretell the future. And if you will remember Jules Verne, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, talked about submarines, and then we had From the Earth to the Moon, where he talked about a spaceship landing on the moon, and we did that. And there was a book called The Titan that was written, I forget how many years before the Titanic went down, but the Titan was a descriptor of what happened. It hit the Titan hit a iceberg. It went down in a certain amount of time. So there was these incredible parallels, and it's almost like in some writing that the future is foretold because we're so creative, and when we humans are. And what you're talking about is computers, AI, that mind at this point is all about data. And data is beautifully analytical, it's perfect, right? Creativity is a mess. You know
Yeah,
that. The creative process, right? So
yeah,
so right now at least, AI cannot produce what a Jake Richards or
yeah,
Byron or another author can do, because we are not perfect, and we have this beautiful creative mess going on in our minds, and we're able to put that on
yeah,
paper. And it's something that unless you have the experience, you're not going to be able to write in that way. So
yeah. Do you have any books you were gonna recommend?
I do. One, it's written by Lauren Hellickson, and it's Dark Moon Light, Discovering Your World with Magic, Mysticism, and the Paranormal. And it's just a really, really, lovely. I love, like you said, I love the whimsical. And when I see someone, it's a very fast read, but she put so much work into the graphics of it, and I sincerely appreciate that. It's
I'll
just a
have to check
beautiful
that
little
out.
book. Yeah, and here is the back with Lauren. There's so many amazing authors. I feel guilty just pointing to a few, but we are limited on time, and so I'm going to show this one. This one is Roots, Branches, and Spirits. This is one of the folkways and witchery of Appalachia, written by H. Byron Ballard, who is
Yeah,
a well-known Appalachian witch. They call her the village witch, Asheville, North Carolina. And
super.
then right here. Now, this has so much heart in it, the Foxfire series. So if you want to know about Appalachian folkways and some of our herbal ways, I love it. The one I picked, I think, all of them now. And this was the one that I just arbitrarily picked out. And it's so funny because Zia had the same
Yeah.
one.
You at
And
number 9?
look at that, number 9, just a
Yeah.
different
I
different
tried to
edition.
collect them all, and this is one of the, like, I guess maybe earlier original printings, maybe earlier ones. But yeah, there's a wealth of information in these, and one of the things I was gonna say was that, to move on to our next subject, it was the spring tonic. And basically all it said was, now listen, this is just, don't take this as medical advice or anything. Look up your everything about herbs and stuff before you try this. But what it says is a spring tonic is to dig up sassafras root, snip them off, and then wash them and boil them. You got to boil it for quite a while and make a tea and drink that tea as a spring tonic, because it's supposed to help your blood, rise up in the body the way the sap would rise up in the tree. It helps you get ready for spring and your body warm up and, get ready to work in the garden again.
Yeah. Yeah, it was actually a treat, wasn't it? I mean, you'd been inside all winter, and so, your granny would go out there and she'd dig this up. And by the way, if you want to see sassafras, just look it up. We love Google. We do love that aspect of it.
Yeah,
The
that's different.
searching. Oh, I wanted to say one more thing before we left, and it popped in my mind. And Z is well aware I have ADHD, and now that I'm older, it's so bad. But anyway, and that is one of the things to look for is most in fact, I'd say probably 99% of AI produced books do not have a bibliography in the back, even if it would be warranted.
Yeah.
So if there's a lack of a bib back there, there's probably lack of research on the part of the author. Now, all books don't need them, right? But for those that should have one, if there's not one there, that's a red flag to me.
Yeah, and I guess you could even just, Google the author and see if they have any kind of presence before that. I mean, who knows if they'd be using their own name or a made up name, but you'd want them to at least be in like, sort of the community and writing stuff like on a blog, like I said that Jake done, giving having some kind of presence there.
Mhm.
Or YouTube
Alrighty.
channel, whatever. Stuff like
Alright, now you had went on to Ostara and I drug you back. So
well, I was just gonna
what
talk
is Ostara?
Let's go talking about, yeah, springtime in general, but Ostara is basically the pagan or Wiccan witchy form of Easter, essentially. And it seems like in the wheel of the year, we all have that same, there's the Christian form and then the pagan or form that really that was the original form was I guess the pagan societies. We had different harvest times and when we would plant and stuff, and it's all related to that when it comes to the wheel of the year. Like, when we would do certain things, like I said, we would use the sassafras root to help get ready for springtime. So that would be an example of what we would do this time of year, get our seeds ready for planting the garden and um you know and get the garden ready a little, let it get a little bit warmer. The ground is still quite hard here, so but you want to till up the garden and everything soon. So it's exciting because we're getting back to that warmer time of the year, and it's the astrological new year because we're starting in Aries. Um, well, technically, when did you say that which new year would be? I've heard Samhain, and then it
It
goes to
it would be Yule because this is when the days start becoming longer, life is coming now, and
yeah,
so,
yeah, that's
with
right.
the
Because
intro
on the winter solstice, that's
but because they're celebrated individually, it's not like there's one huge celebration,
yeah,
right? So everything is celebrated, and then, after that, we have Imbolc, which literally means in milk, when the little goats and kids and, all of that would happen, and, it was life. It was all about life,
yeah.
everything coming back to life, and
And then
now
on
we're at
the second,
Astara.
yeah, so it's
Yeah,
the
which
second
is the
kind of like,
growing.
yeah,
Yeah.
spring coming in. Now I did have this little thing bookmark here that would be good to read about that. It's not very long, but I just happened to turn to this. Sometimes it's just like divine providence or something. You get a message when you just open a book and it's almost just like randomly, you're like, wait a minute. And so it kind of goes with what we're talking about. So, um, together with the earth and all its creatures, we discover our own resurrection through our passion and surrender to the bursting open of all life. And so we'll be seeing all the beautiful plants blossoming, and it's just a great feeling that we're back in that part of the wheel of the year. If we can wake up from the winter slumber and um, making our plans come to fruition that we've had over the winter dreaming time.
Yeah, I like that, we have these markers and how important they were in an agrarian society. And that, like in bulk, it's a celebration the first day of spring. And then after that, we have the time in the year when we begin to plant, right? We already have our little ones being born, into the fold, and now we have the plants and all of this beginning. So because of that, one of the things that many people do is bake bread as a reminder, of the grains and the wonderful things that are to come. And also spring cleaning was a
Yeah,
thing. It's
that's
still a
important.
thing.
Yeah. That gets you just, yeah, everything cluttered. Get out the clutter, stuff that don't serve you anymore, so you get ready for the new year and your plans coming up. And yeah, this rule of the year was very important for the old civilizations and societies because um we're based on a farming, schedule. And then you got to get your farmer's almanac. That's important too, especially with Appalachian folk magic. It tells you all the days and what sign the moon is in and how to plant by the signs, and that's important. and just how to do there's different, spells and stuff you can do on different phases of the moon and different well, depending like what sign the moon is in and stuff. So get your farmer's almanac ready. And also I'm gonna have a witch's almanac too, and that just has some cool stories and spells in it too. Recipes,
Oh, I
like
love
cookies
that.
and
Yeah.
bread.
Yeah, and this is when we begin to plan eggs. Eggs are, a huge
Oh,
representation
yeah.
of this holiday. Just decorating them, hiding them, that sort of thing. And then spring flowers, going out and getting your bouquets and bringing them into the house so that we get those nice smells.
And it's also for me about like, when you think about, St. Patrick's Day and, some people will say they don't want to talk about St. Patrick's Day if they're pagan because he drove the snakes out of Ireland and stuff. But what I like to think of it as is like nature spirits, leprechauns, fairies, rainbows, treasure, So and I got this little girl today. She's a pixie or pixling, so she's got little wings and she's got that pretty pink and green that represents like springtime flowers. So that was a cute little thing that I was glad I got today. Show and tell. I like
I
toys
love it.
too, but adults.
So, Ostara it's a beautiful time to celebrate. And I think next up on the calendar is Beltane, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah. May
Beltane,
3rd, or yeah. Well,
uh,
now
y
Ostara's March 20th, and then
mhm,
Bealtaine is because this is based on, like, Gaelic pronunciations, it looks
mhm,
like Beltane, but I
mhm,
think there's different people says different ways, but yeah,
mhm.
Bealtaine is, I think, how you're supposed to say it, but,
I'll never say
you know
it that
but,
way.
yeah, we're not Irish, so
Yeah.
but we
Well,
do
no, I
have
love
Irish ancestors, I'm sure Irish
mhm,
and Scots Irish, and
yeah. But I like that. It's supposed, when you look at the calendar, you have Samhain here, which is Halloween. And if you go straight down south, you've got Beltane. And the one thing that they share is that both of them are fire festivals. And I love
yeah,
that energy about them.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, those are the big ones, like, they're the 2 big ones, I think. Well,
I
the
think,
New
so.
Year was pretty big too, but,
you
because that's
know,
the New Year, like you said.
Lunasa is it's like the first harvest, right? And my granny was born. She actually passed, and I thought on that day that it fell that year, and I was just like, oh my gosh, it just for her it made so much sense, the first harvest of
Oh,
the
yeah.
year, and yeah, and that's when she left us for a short period of time anyway. All right, now you've got a really cool little mini feature, and that is witchy music. So take it away, Zia.
Okay, well, growing up, it's like I always noticed different, songs that were magical called to me. Like, there was a lot of songs I think in the 70s that was witch oriented. We got Witchy Woman, I think that's by the Eagles, and we got Black Magic Woman, Santana, and we got Season of the Witch by Donovan. Cliff Richard does one called Devil Woman, and I like the lyrics in that. It's very cool. You guys gotta look up the music. We'd like to put the music and music videos here, but you know how that is. A lot of stuff they gotta cut it, but because of copyright. But what I'll do is maybe like in the notes or something, we'll put a link of like a playlist or something. But then we got so yeah, witches were always like feared and revered as like kind of like a femme fatale people, sexy but also frightening, powerful. But
Well,
yeah,
I think that's
yeah,
the whole part of the sexy and many males being afraid is that feminine power. It's
yeah,
a different kind of power than the male because there's a balance in the universe. There has to be male and female. When you get when you get too much feminine energy, we can become too emotional and some would consider too weak in some areas to do what is necessary to actually survive in a very harsh world. But when we tilt and there's too much masculine energy, then what we have is war. So, we have to have balance, and when we're out of balance, then we have issues.
Yeah, there's definitely it's all about balance. But like a lot of the songs like in the 70s are very like, the psychedelic time. Most of those songs were positive. They didn't really say anything too bad. But like Black Sabbath and that's in that name, that's talking about like the Black Mass, the Black Sabbath of the witches back in the day, what they were trying to say they were evil and everything. And as we know, there weren't really witches that were burned. We've talked about this, we could go on and then on forever about like the witch trials and things like that. But, you know, there was very much like a pop culture witch presence during that time in their music. And I'd like to do an episode talking about like which pop culture movies. Let me know if y'all would want to know about talk about like which movies and stuff like that or shows. Yeah.
Since you mentioned that, and also topics, yeah, we would like to do a segment, talking about maybe one movie or one series, per episode for a bit anyway.
Mhm.
So if
Okay.
you've got something that you recommend, let us know. But also topics. Is there something going on in the witchy world or in the paranormal world? Because it can be any of it, right? Ghost hunting world. So, any of that that's going on that we could do a little research and address in our show, we'd like to hear from you.
Yeah, we definitely want some viewer participation. We want to get a good community going and leave comments and let us know what your favorite witchy song is too. Definitely Stevie Nicks plays a big role in this. We have Rhiannon by Fleetwood Mac, so that's an incredible song and one of my favorite songs of all time. A lot of people connect to that, and some of Stevie Nicks is also her. She's got several other like very mystical, magical, witchy songs, and she's had a real following the past few years. And I think that's because of the show American Horror Story, specifically Coven that she was in. So I think that brought her presence to a lot of younger viewers. And I think that's actually contributed to the witch boom too, that show and her presence in it. And I think it's a good thing. I enjoy it. I always like watching the shows and listen to music about witches. And then, so there's some newer music too that came out about witches. Let me see my notes.
And I will pop in here. My favorite song, dealing with witches or on the topic of witches is probably Season of the Witch, just because I love Lana Del Rey, and I know Donovan did it first, and he does a wonderful job with that. But Lana Del Rey, I mean, come on. That woman has just a majestic voice. I
Yeah.
love her voice.
Yeah. And there's another version by Karen Elson. She did a good version too.
Mm.
But yeah, I've got me a playlist of all that and we'll share it with y'all. And well, really, I need to add all this other stuff too. That was just my personal playlist to get me in like a magical mood. But I'll make you a separate playlist for that. But Swamp Witch by Jim Stafford, it tells a story about, it's like a Southern Gothic story, so that really speaks to me. And I have it on my Southern Gothic playlist. So it talks about, like, tells you the story about the Swamp Witch Hattie and how she was actually a good witch, but people had feared her at first. Um and it's just, I like songs like that tell a story, like Devil Went Down to Georgia tells a story and stuff like that, or Legend of Woolly Swamp by Charlie Daniels Band as well. But and then some of the more modern songs, since which is the witch boom is happening, we're becoming more popular and stepping into our power. It's WITCH, just spelling it out, and it meant woman in total control of herself is what she sings in it, and that's what it stands for. But that's by Devin Cole. And then recently, oh, there's a song called The Sisterhood by Mackenzie, and I forgot to write her last name down. Sorry, but y'all probably know what I'm talking about because that was probably a big thing on TikTok. That's probably how I found it, I'd say. But it's a really good song. It's very magical. You'll just, I should have put the lyrics on here and I'll read it to you. But yeah, definitely look that one up. But it'll be on the list, on our playlist. Um, then Witch on the Hill by Holler Hounds. That was a really fun video, and it's a Southern Gothic, and I was delighted to find that. So yeah, it tells a story too. Yeah.
All
We're
right, well,
very passionate about music.
I love that. There's so many wonderful songs. And we were talking earlier, we would like to do, part of our episode on witches who are musicians because there's so many beautiful songs out there that are well known within the community that are sung by such talented people. And also on the books, I'm backtracking. We just want to, commend everyone who has contributed to the literature throughout the years. We know there's so many great authors. We acknowledge that. We just can't give everyone their due. So if you have a favorite author, who has written either a paranormal book or a book about, any form of witchcraft or, maybe just talking about the old ways or the old gods or something like that, let us know. We'd love to hear from you in that respect also. Just, write us a little message and we always respond. So it's not like you're just writing and it's going to be there forever. We will respond to it. All right, Zia, do we have anything else before we wrap up?
I think that we have said a lot and we made a lot of good points and brought up a lot of good subjects. But yeah, like you said, we need some viewer input and thanks everybody for watching. That's what I want to say.
Absolutely, because if you all aren't watching, it's a lonely place.
Yeah.
And we don't wanna be lonely, we want lots of company. Alrighty, until next time,
Stay
stay
curious.
curious.